The offering plate. I'm sure you've seen this passed around every Sunday at church. And you're supposed to put money in it, specifically 10% of your income. Alright, first of all, I wanted to tell you people that's supposed to be 10% of your net income, not your gross income, as people have misinformed a whole bunch of people. And this comes from Matthew 22:21, where Jesus specifically said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to the Lord what is the Lord's." In other words, don't worry about what you give to Caesar. If you earn $600 and you only receive $400 of it because Caesar took $200 away, don't worry about coughing up the 10% of that $200 that Caesar took away, because that belongs to Caesar. That does not belong to God. Alright? So he's talking about your net income. Alright. Now the second thing is that people will stand there and say, well, gee, if you don't put 10% of your income into the offering plate, you'll be struck dead right then and there. No, that's not true. Check out Acts chapter 5, and you'll find out that that is completely false. Why were those two people killed? Not because they didn't put things in the offering plate. That was bad enough. But because they also lied about it. They were telling people they were doing things that they weren't doing. They specifically told God, gee, I put something in your plate. And they didn't. And because of that, that's why they were struck dead. So anybody that's telling you, hey, you don't put something in the offering plate, you're going to be struck dead right then and there, they don't know their gospel too well. Now then, it also brings up a point of this. Does everybody have to give 10%? No. Let me tell you something. Sometimes God blesses you so much that you end up with 30 to 50% what you can still give. There's no little chart in the Bible showing exactly who's to give what and where. I've seen people round this all off to the decimal point. Well, I'm not going to give him any more than this. That's not Christian. Let me tell you something. God wants you to give 40% of your income, and he makes it possible for you to do it. Go ahead. What's stopping you? You stand there and say, well, I don't have to. Well, you don't have to, but if God compels you to, go for it. So there's really no maximum to what you can give, and there are several Bible verses that prove that you can give as much as you want. God's not going to stand there and put up a little tally sheet and say, well, you only have to give this much. I mean, yes, that's true. You should feel obligated only to give a certain amount, but the thing is, if you want to give more, what's stopping you? But don't be upset if somebody can't give as much as you. Let me tell you something. If you can give $1,000 and this other guy over here can only give $10, don't be mad at him because he only gives $10. Because that's all God really requires of him. And even at that, there's always been some debate about whether it has to be a full 10% or not. And let me tell you something. You don't have to give it to somebody like a David Koresh or a Jim Jones. Let me tell you something. This money is to be given to God, not to a minister. Okay? You're not there to make the minister rich. You're there to give it to God's ministry. And if all that money is doing is making a minister rich, then it's being given wrong. And if you're giving it to a point where you're doing it like an accountant and going, you're doing it wrong. And God will not accept a tithe like that. Shoot, people wouldn't accept a tithe like that. What makes you think God's going to? So don't account it like a decimal point. Okay? We're not trying to figure out it's X amount of dollars and X amount of cents, so you're drawing out like 20 bills and then you pull out these pocket change and you make sure that you don't give more than 10%. That's stupid. And it's not Christian either. You give what God compels you to give. God will tell you inside your heart what you're supposed to give. And when you do, when he tells you, that's what you give and nothing more and nothing less. And let me tell you something. There are churches out there that are a lot more prosperous than others because of the attitude of the Christians inside. There was actually a church listed in the book of Acts that had so many tithes they actually had to turn the tithes away. If you don't believe me, read the book of Acts. You'll find out for yourself. Alright, So hopefully that pretty much covered what the offering plate is really all about, and I will cover more in a future video, so stay tuned.